easy. Do you want my most unethical life pro tip for work
Yeah,
travel?
definitely.
Date your coworker
Ah,
so that all of your dates can be paid for by your company.
okay. Hello and welcome to Haverin About, father-daughter podcast where we talk about all kinds of things related to health information technology and business. Thank you very much for tuning in to last week's episode. We really enjoyed that discussion about the health conference. And today we're going to segue in because I was traveling for health, as we shared with you. And today's episode, Bethany is no longer in Georgia, but she is traveling internationally on business. So today's episode is all about business travel. Bethany, tell us all a little bit about why you're in London.
Yeah, in London for some meetings and to meet with some people, which is always exciting. Dad and I have both had the privilege and the curse of traveling regularly for work. And I think it really doesn't matter where you are. It's always good when you wake up in a hotel and you're like, where am I
Where
again?
am I?
Oh, I'm in
What's
Kansas
my room
City.
number?
Oh, yeah. So I saw a meme or a tweet, I don't know, something online about someone saying that they went through their camera roll and the number of photos of hotel room numbers. And I was like, oh my God, if I went through my camera roll, there would be dozens of photos of either the little key card envelope or the room, which it's better now with the apps now when you can open the doors with the phone.
Yeah.
That's great. Love that. Big fan. But anyway, so we've both traveled a lot for work and we've both traveled a lot personally. So we'll chat a little bit about it because, whether you travel for work regularly or whether you are new to the world of work travel, or even if you just have travel coming up for the holidays, I think especially with all the crazy stuff
there's
going
been
on
a
in
lot
the
going
airports
on
right now.
Yeah, there's been a lot going on, particularly in the United States with air travel being affected by the government shutdown and the limitations to air corridor capacity and how that has been impacting. And I know that we were a little concerned about that with you, but thankfully they're prioritizing international flights and you were able to fly directly out of the ATL. That's another topic. We should talk about airports and favorite airports and least favorite airports. And
I'll say right now,
Atlanta, out of.
Atlanta is the best airport in the world. The SkyTrain is perfect.
Yep.
You can easily get from terminal to terminal.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It's not offshoot. There's not a million little offshoots where people have, built new terminals. You have to take a bus. You don't have to leave the terminal. Atlanta is the perfect airport. I will hear no slander against ATL. None.
The only thing is I have a number of friends, because I don't know why, but there's a very high density of technology-oriented businesses on the north side of Atlanta, and the airport is on the south side of Atlanta. And the one thing they always complain about, you're lucky because you live to the southwest of the ATL, and it's actually a pretty straight shot in to be able to get to the airport. But I know for people who live, up in Marietta and places like that, north of Atlanta, they curse having to get to the airport because it's on the outside and they have to drive through the metropolis to actually get to it.
Well, that's on them. I'm so sorry that they have great school districts and food and shopping, but it takes them forever to get to the airport.
I know. What a curse.
What a curse. When I used to live I lived in Brookhaven and I lived in Midtown.
Yeah.
Some days it would be a 20-minute Uber to the airport, and some days it would be 2 hours. You couldn't really tell, even if it was the middle of the night. But now that I live on the south side of the city, it is like 50 minutes straight shot. I know exactly where to park. It's so easy.
Yeah. And I've got a similar blessing here in southeast Minnesota in that I live in a small city that is right on the edge of an interstate that takes you directly up to Minneapolis. So my drive time, I mean, and it is pretty solid unless there's construction and you have to sort of like, weave your way around it, or if there's a road traffic accident or something that is bad enough that it is impacting that artery. But being able to get from where I am, it's about 55 miles and it takes 55 minutes to actually park in the parking garage at MSP, which is my hub. And it's weird because for the first time in a long time, we both live in Delta hubs. So that's terribly convenient.
I know. Except flying between Delta hubs is expensive.
Yeah, they do like to gouge. That is true.
Which is part of the reason why we're driving for some godforsaken reason. We're driving for Thanksgiving. Well, but that's okay.
Let me talk about driving for a second, because in the early part of my career in the UK, that's how I traveled for business.
Did you have a company car? Yeah.
That was the thing, is that the companies either provided you a car or provided you an allowance to get a leased car, which you then drove for business. And so I put on an extraordinary amount of miles. In fact, given that it's coming up to the holiday season, I had a manager, sort of gentleman called Terry Smith, who I love dearly. He was very, very influential in a lot of me learning about sales, and ended up as a relatively senior executive at Microsoft. He's now retired back to Edinburgh, of all places, and enjoying his life there. But Terry had this little tradition, is every year at our kind of like staff gathering, which was normally quite boozy, he would allocate a theme song to each person. And at the time, we were living in Wolverhampton, which is where your elementary school was in the early days. And I used to commute and drive to Newbury, which is about 110 miles, something like that. And so that was my commute. So I put on a lot of miles backwards and forwards on the A41, and then ultimately the M5 once that was completed, backwards and forwards up to from the Midlands of England down to kind of like the central south of England. And he allocated to me a Chris Rea track, which was Driving Home for Christmas. And he thought that was quite amusing because he said, you're always saying about being so happy to be back with your family. I said, yeah. I said, I like Chris Rea too, but I think maybe the more appropriate track is The Road to Hell. Normally, the only way I could travel that distance between those two was first thing in the morning, like 5 a.m., because you had to get across Birmingham, a bit like we were saying getting across Atlanta. You had to get across Birmingham before the traffic built up. And then similarly, on the way back, you had to hit Birmingham. There's an intersection in Birmingham called Spaghetti Junction, which is where all of the motorways, interstates, actually connect, and it's always congested until 7, 8 o'clock at night. And I would drive either extremely early or extremely late just to avoid the congestion around Birmingham. So very similar story to those people with Atlanta and getting to the ATL, except in my case, I was driving 110 miles. And then this was the days when all I had was, I was lucky enough, I had a car with a CD player. So I was able to play CDs. Before that, I had a car with cassettes. So you had to keep flipping the cassettes on that kind of couple of hours drive to be able to get backwards and forwards. But that was the entertainment. And then I even got a Vodafone car phone, with coily cable that was there. And thankfully it was hands-free. And the weird thing was that Terry also lived in the Midlands, but further south than me. And so he would drive and he would call me. We literally just had been in 2 days of meetings, and he would call me and while away an hour just talking on the phone, either about work stuff or about other stuff. And that was his kind of like, sort of dumping therapy so that he could go into his family and go, I feel better now. I took it all out on Stuart. So driving was a big part of my early career. Yeah.
In America, we say like and subscribe.
In Scotland, we say, don't be a numpty, just press the button.
That's one of the best things about driving, especially in the US. It's easy to drive in the US because you get on the highway and you go to Nashville, right?
Yeah.
In Atlanta to Nashville, it's 2 highways. It's very easy. When I was earlier in my career, I did that drive a lot from Atlanta
Yeah.
to Nashville. And it was great because I knew where the dead spots were.
Yeah.
Like when you go up the mountain, the coverage, the phone signal would get a bit crappy. But before that and after that, because I was in a kind of more account management-y role versus true sales, I would just call up my customers and be like, hey, how's it going? What's new? Tell me what's up.
Yeah.
And I made some of the best connections with people just by calling them.
Yeah.
Just calling once every couple of weeks for 10 minutes, catch up. They'd tell me what their kid was up to. I'd tell them about whatever. And it was lovely. Although I did one of my very first work trips. It was Atlanta to somewhere in America. And there was a group of us going because at the time we were sort of part of this firefighter force called the Dragon Customer Advocacy Program.
Yeah.
And so the DCAT team would get flown into a very angry hospital and we would walk around the halls and fix their dragon. So on one of them, I was the lead. And so I would send out all of the travel info, like we're going to fly out on this day, fly back this day, don't book a flight before this time.
Yeah, I've received those emails from you.
Yeah.
And I didn't even work for you.
No. You got to be organized. And I had to like wrangle the sales team, the engineers, the trainer. Like there was a lot of people I was wrangling. So I'd wrangle everyone. And then because I was only 23 at the time, if I rented a car, I got flagged because I was under 25.
Yeah.
And I did my first time because I was like, well, it's business travel. It's fine. And then I got an email from Nuance, like finance team or whatever, being like, you got charged an extra X, like $100, $200 or something. Please do not rent a car anymore. You're too young. Like, please make sure that older people rent it for you. So I always had to like talk to everybody else was older than me on the team. I had to like Teams one of them and be like, could you rent the car? And the advocate was normally the one that would take lead. And they're like, yeah, why? And I'm like, well, I'm only 23 and they charge more money. So I need a grown-up to rent a car for us. They'd be like, okay. But I just figured out who was really into like the Avis points or whatever. And I was like, do you want to get the point? But yes, absolutely. Yeah. I will rent the car. So, but I got out of driving.
Yeah.
This was nice.
Let's talk about points for a second. Because a lot of people in companies get quite jealous of sales folks because, it's like when you go to either SKO or you go to sort of like a product meeting or something like that, and you check in at the airline desk. And so a bunch of you are traveling from the same city to somewhere else, and they call out zone 1 for first class, after they've allowed the veterans and everything else. Yeah, but it's only certain salespeople. Uh-huh. In fact, I've been on flights where I've been upgraded and my manager ended up in the back. Like our SVP of sales was in the back in an economy seat because he never traveled. And so therefore it's there. I think that I reached a point in my career though, whereby I as you said earlier on, it's a double-edged sword. It's like, yeah, sure, those perks are nice. And by the way, and we can maybe talk about this, is I think they're being quite diminished compared to how it used to be. I think the airlines have kind of really started to tighten up on a lot of that stuff that used to be very prevalent earlier in the 2000s and 2010s. But you do get to a point whereby once you attain that status, the first year is great. When you get it year after year, that's because you have spent a long time away from it. A long time. It's like I'm lifetime diamond on Hilton. If I had been able to keep going, or if I'd moved to the States earlier in my career, I'd be lifetime Marriott as well. And the challenge is you get that and you're like, I don't want to stay in another Hilton hotel. I'm good for the time being. Thank you.
Yeah.
So I tell me about your experience of that excitement and joy of the perks versus the pain of getting them and retaining them.
Yeah. I mean, for hotels, I just go for whatever is cheapest and easiest. Usually I try to stick to I pretty much can always stick to Hilton's or Marriott's. Those are the two that historically the companies I've worked for have been buddied up with. I'm lucky in that my husband's company has a great agreement with Hilton. And so we get a lot of very, very cheap hotels through them, which is lovely. A room is a room. You don't really get upgraded nowadays. Like I'm in a very normal hotel room here in London. It's a nice Hilton. It's fine. It's not fancy, but it's just me. I don't really need a fancy room. The biggest perk is on Delta. I have status on Delta. And so I almost always get upgraded to at least Delta Comfort, which is fine. When it's just me, I don't care. That's fine. There is no, and I was thinking this because I was chatting, I was Comfort Plus bulkhead, poor man's first class. And the lady next to me had never flown internationally before. And she was like, oh, is that first class? And it was premium select, which is like old school first class. And then there's Delta One ahead, which is the nice lie flat seats.
Yeah, the pods.
And she was like, oh, they're so nice. They're going to get such. And I was like, yeah, I mean, yes, it's a slightly bigger seat and you get a little footrest. That's the biggest thing that is nice. But I was like, but they get the same food.
Yeah.
And honestly, theirs were being served in like, it wasn't even like the proper crockery and stuff. It was paper stuff as well. So I was like, I'm not going to spend. Now, if a company wants to spend it, sure, whatever. I don't care. I'll happily fly first class if my company's paying for it. But there's no, for $1,000+ it's really not worth it. And the only downside, so the good thing about having status is I can check bags for free, which when I come to London is great. This podcast is currently being filmed on my iPad on a stack of selection boxes that I went to Tesco's last night.
You've got a photograph, haven't you? I'll insert it in the edit here so people can see what your studio looks like.
My studio.
On the road.
We're a month before Christmas. All the Christmas stuff is out. I could order it all online and spend $20 a selection box, or I could come here and spend like $5 each. So my suitcase is just chocolate. It's chocolate and clothes and books for my 5-year-old. Yeah. Christmas is done. I've done my shopping.
And I do believe my darling beloved may also have some swag in your haul as well.
Oh, I mean, yeah, there are gifts for other people, but it's primarily chocolate.
I was thinking of the knitting yarn.
Yes, there's wool for socks. There's Advocar, because you can't get that in the UK, in the US. So it's nice to have the status so that you can check a bag for free. You know, there was a guy that I worked with at Nuance, which is my first big girl health tech job, called Michael Selman. And he like sat us all down because we were a young group of like ragtag people that Amanda pulled together. And he was like, you all need to figure out what airline you're going to be and what hotel you're going to be. And you got to get your points and you got to get a credit card for one of these.
Focus.
And he was like, you focus these. And so I was like, okay, Michael Selman. And so I signed up and, you know, luckily you can get free bags and stuff with the credit cards. But I think that goes back to if you are new into healthcare technology sales and it changes every couple of years, right? What was true in the early 2010s is not true today necessarily. It updates. But find your people who are little road warriors and ask them, like, what are you doing right now? Do you sign up for this? Should I do that? What hack can you do for your company? Because if you are working for a company where you can book everything yourself and you just need receipts, that's fine. If you're booking where you're booking through like a Concur or CWT or one of those travel sites, there's a lot of quirks on those. And you've got to figure out who knows those quirks best so that you're not wasting a lot of time. And it's easier now, right? Like
that's the thing is, so, you know, if you think of it, my airports, I was in Philadelphia for 6 years. That's an American, US Airways prior, but American once they merged, a hub. And that meant that a high proportion of my flights were that. And then towards the latter end of being in Philadelphia, the company introduced no, we're going to kind of force you to take the lowest flight. So suddenly I ended up getting bounced around between different airlines. And of course, the problem with that is you've built up status with one, and then suddenly you're being forced onto other airlines. Then I moved to Nashville. And so suddenly I was a hodgepodge of things, but Southwest was introduced to my life because Nashville used to be a Southwest hub and still has a lot of Southwest flights originating from there or passing through there. So Southwest suddenly became in the mix. And I sort of like switched my allegiance for quite a long time to Southwest for any US domestic. The challenge then became that I started traveling internationally to the UK. So I kind of defaulted back onto American for a little while, US Airways American. And then I kind of sort of like switched to British Airways for my transatlantic flights because there was significantly more volume of them to be able to get in and out of London, and got status there, which helped because at the time British Air was pretty good. I know that it has declined since in terms of the quality of service, but then so have a lot of US carriers too.
Yeah.
And then I'm now in Minneapolis, so I'm back to being, a Delta guy again. Whenever I travel, and it's significantly less travel now than it used to be, given that I work for a health system organization. But I think that advice, as you say, if you know you're going to be living in an airport and it is very much a core hub for one airline, that helps enormously with status as far as that is concerned. But I think it is a challenge. The issue is, it's always nice to be able to get a bigger seat, a wider seat, for them to bring you a hot breakfast as opposed to here's your yogurt and cold croissant thrown in your lap. But at the same time, it's like I wouldn't pay for it, necessarily, particularly for flights underneath 3 or 4 hours. I think if you're trying to sort of like travel that distance, the nicest long haul flights I've flown in are one, Emirates. I've never traveled Emirates first, which is the very top level, whereby
that's a lot of money.
Studio type.
That's where you get to take a hawk. You can take a hawk on the plane if you're in Emirates first. It's true. I don't know if you can to the US, but if you're in the Middle East, at least you can bring your hawk on board.
Business?
But there is a maximum number of hawks allowed on one flight. Okay. It's the whole thing.
I want one of our listeners to go and research that and tell us what is the limit of the number of hawks that you can take as onboard luggage for Emirates Airlines if you're traveling. Bethany says, if you don't subscribe, I'm not allowed to make any more dad jokes.
Which honestly might be a selling point. But still, subscribe anyway, please.
But Emirates Business is like other airlines first class. It is ridiculous, the difference, when you actually experience it. And in like Dubai, which is the hub for a lot of Emirates flights, you've actually got different levels in the airport, at the boarding gate. They have the general level, and then they have the business level, which is a different air bridge. And then they have the first class air bridge, which is a completely different. And it's like the segmentation is like really weird when you consider that in most US airlines, and we can talk about, what do they call them? The gate cockroaches, or what do they call the name for people who like just hang around
hover,
and hover, which is the worst thing ever, because it's like, we all know there are zones, so there's no point in just hovering unless you're in zone 1 or 2. Why are you hovering around the gate? Because,
our Delta lady the other night was on top of it. Right. She was like, none of you need to be here right now. Go sit down. Don't block my hallway. There's people going. Go and sit down on a seat. Yeah. We're not bored. I was like,
so I think that is become one of those lack of courtesy things that I genuinely have seen develop over the last 20 years that I've been traveling in the US. It's very much sort of people feeling that they've got a right to be right there so that they can get that extra 3 people in front.
It's because of the hand luggage. It's because they charge so much for bags now. Like, it's crazy. We were looking at a flight internationally to go visit family in December and January, and to book your flight or whatever, and then the luggage, it's like $40 per piece of luggage. And it's like, okay, well, there's 3 of us going for like 2 weeks, and it's Christmas, so we have gifts. It's going to cost us like $200 because it's $40 there and back. So I'm like, that's $80. There's 3 of us. We have so anyway. So I think that's the airlines have bought it on themselves.
Yeah.
Is my
and
it's my platform.
Honestly, they don't care because they still manage to load quickly enough. And, even though Pete Buttigieg tried to introduce some rules to hold them more accountable for some of the travel experience, I just don't think it makes a lot of difference. It's, it's one of the things it's odd. My wife, Sarah, mum, looks at these travel videos on YouTube of travel in the 60s or the 50s on airlines, and everybody's all in full dress and the ladies are all made up and everything else. Now, tell me, Bethany, tell me how you prepare for your experience on board, given that it's a 7 hour flight.
Well, first off, I'll say the lady I was sat next to on the flight here, who had never flown internationally, said that I looked very polished. I was like, well, thank you. I appreciate that. I am a fan of the Spanx Air Essentials matching set.
Nice.
So not Spanx like the sucky and underwear, but it's
the soft, but like loungewear type
soft
stuff.
athleisure.
Athleisure? Is that what they call it? No,
athleisure.
Okay. Athleisure. I'll go with it.
But no, just comfy, but it looks pulled together. I blow dried my hair out so it would look nice the next day, put it up in a big bun. Big fan of, you should always moisturize on a plane because planes are gross and dehydrating.
Yep.
You should buy a giant bottle of water. I woke up at 3 a.m. on the flight and was so parched. I went to the back and they had just a tray of all the cups out. And I drank 5 cups of water. And the guy poked his head. I was like, you okay? I was like, I'm so thirsty. He's like, do you just want the bottle? I was like, oh yeah. So he gave me a big bottle to take back because I'd already finished mine.
Also, always be nice to your cabin crew. Because they have to deal with so much rubbish. And actually, they will remember you. They actually pay attention to you.
Yes, absolutely.
So what else is your onboard routine? What keeps you occupied or helps send you to sleep or whatever? What else do you do?
I am a fan of, do you want to see here, I'll show you my favorite things when I travel.
Cool.
Props. There's props. Number 1, this little dongle. I don't know if you've even seen this, Dad. This is a Bluetooth headphone connector thing. So you plug it into your screen and then you take your headphones and you cannot pay attention to anybody. You can put the quiet mode on and you don't have any cables. Also great if you have children so that if they fall asleep, they're not
tethered.
Kind of all over the place. Yeah. Yes, they're not tethered. The other thing I love is this one. This is my portable Apple Watch charger.
Yes, you put me onto that. I've got one of those too. Yeah.
So good.
Yep.
Anchor. Wonderful. It means you don't have the big cable. It just plugs right in.
Yep.
Huge fan. Also a fan that lives in my charger case. Tiny scissors. These are okay. I've never been flagged with them.
Okay.
I think they're okay because they're tiny. But there have been so many times where I've gotten to a hotel and I've been like, oh, I got to cut this or that or whatever. So huge fan.
Because Mum has this problem as well because she likes crafting. She does either cross stitch or knitting. And in both of those, you have to cut yarn. And so she was delighted. I think the TSA lifted the restrictions. It used to be nothing sharp and metal. And then they kind of lifted that to, well, it's going to be really, really difficult to cause serious injury with, little embroidery scissors. So I think that's kind of the rule is the blades have to be shorter than 2 inches, something like that.
Yeah.
In terms of what they're allowed to bring in now. If I find the actual regulations, I'll see if I can link them in here.
Yeah.
As well as given that you have shown us your kit, and I'm sure you've still got more to show, if anybody is interested in those products, I'm going to put some links to Amazon. They will be affiliate links, Amazon affiliate links. Won't cost you any more, but it may help us to scrape a few pennies together to help pay for our subscriptions to the software we use for this. So what else have you got in your bag?
I think my other two biggest tips are, if you are going to be traveling a lot for work, especially, but even if you just travel, you should get a second set of toiletries and chargers.
Yes.
So I have my little charger box, which is from Lineate. Throwback. That doesn't exist anymore. Yeah. And I have all my chargers in there, and they never leave.
Just formerly known as Rhapsody, or now known as Rhapsody, if anybody is actually following along. Yes.
Rhapsody, then Lineate, then Rhapsody, then... Anyway, these chargers stay there. My family, children, stepkids, husband, does not know where this bag lives, because they are... I swear they have chargers. My stepkids mostly. They have chargers. They have cables. They have plenty.
Yeah.
But they will, if I leave like one of my portable chargers out to charge, it'll
disappears.
And then it'll turn up again 3 weeks later, dead. I'll like grab it back and put it back in my bag. So a big fan of get all the chargers you need and just have them live in a bag that never leaves. And same with toiletries. I've got a toiletry, little orange Dagny Dover, great thing. And nothing ever leaves. There's another mascara in there. There's another shampoo and conditioner. Because early on in my career, I remember having to, we landed in whatever city we were in. We got to the hotel and I realized I had left my toiletry bag at home. And I had to, I didn't have a rental car because I was under 25. I had to ask one of our engineers, like, could you drive me to CVS? Because I need to get like everything.
Yeah.
And so since then, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to buy a whole separate pack of refillable little cadence pods and stuff. And yes, that's my biggest.
Well, I'll tell you, you mentioned Anchor there and then also chargers when you're traveling. When you're traveling internationally, the other challenge that you have is international adapters. Now, you've got that one, which I put you onto that one 7-8 years ago. I used those when I was traveling to the UK. In fact, that's more than 10 years ago.
Yeah.
However, I just got a new one from Anchor that is a fraction of that size, and it's got magic buttons and sliders. So like all the pins like mysteriously disappear into the shell of the body. And they go, so it's like one of their small compact, it's the size of one of their small compact, like, USB chargers, the kind of like 45 watt type ones that you can get relatively inexpensively. I'll link to those as well. But this is from their new Nano range, and it is actually there. And it literally has all of the international adapters folded up in something that size. So it is incredibly discreet. And here's my useful tip, because I used to travel with about 4 or 5 of those big green ones that Bethany has, because of course you've got multiple devices that you're trying to plug in. And now I don't do that. What I do when I'm traveling internationally is I have 1, maybe 2 of those plug adapters, socket adapters. And then what I do is I buy short length square extension bumps.
If you're enjoying Haverin About, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps more people find us.
And of course, subscribe so you don't miss the next bit of blethering. You wouldn't want to do that, would you?
So thinking about stuff like that as to what do I need to power all of our modern life devices. Of course, now we're podcasters. We have to think of even more equipment, and be able to do that. So there's a lot there. You were about to show me something.
No, I was going to say, I have that right now.
Yeah.
The biggest reason to get that as well, not even if you're traveling internationally.
Yep.
If you're going to a sales meeting or an SKO, especially if you're in a hotel ballroom where there's like one socket on the side of the room over there.
Yeah.
If you bring that, everybody can plug in their phones and their laptops. And suddenly you're the popular person. So if you want to be nice to your coworkers,
impress people and make new friends.
Exactly. Then you should bring
a power strip.
Yeah. Hours
Yeah.
trip, so easy. Do you want my most unethical life pro tip for work
Yeah,
travel?
definitely.
Date your coworker
Ah,
so that all of your dates can be paid for by your company.
okay, you now need to lean into that because I know what you're referencing. But why
I
don't you
should hope
share with
so.
the audience?
So my first big girl job, met a boy, fell in love, all that good stuff. But he and I, and it was, but this is HR compliance. So when I say unethical life pro tips, this was HR good, not my manager. I was not his. 2 separate reporting structures, all kosher and above board. We didn't necessarily tell people that we were dating because that's weird. You're just dating. What if you don't date, right? And so I was the advocate for all of the Cerner clients, and he was the engineer for most of the Cerner clients. So the 2 of us would travel together a lot, and we would be joined by other people sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like sales would come with us. We went on a few road trips with Cerner people. We would have management join us because we were going to a lot of the big hospitals because we were really good at our jobs. And so we traveled the country together. And, when you travel, you each get a hotel room. So we were both getting hotel points. Great. You both get mileage points. Great. But then you also both have like a $75 per day
Per diem
budget.
Yep.
And if you're at one of those hospital on-sites, you know that in the morning you're eating a protein bar that you probably bought from home, or maybe you bought in the hotel lobby for $5. For lunch, you're probably eating
the canteen,
a $10
sandwich.
Subway from the canteen.
Yep.
Yeah, it's nothing fancy. So by the end of the day, you're left with like $60-$70 each. And if you combine forces, that's a lovely date night. And so, we would go out for like the big team dinners and stuff, and
which
eat a
also
lot
saves
as a
you
team,
money
and that
on
was
your per
great.
diem, even though technically the manager is supposed to say, okay, well, we
Who was there and stuff, yeah. But we had some amazing, especially ones where like it was just the 2 of us. Like we had to go to Phoenix and Tucson to go to visit clients out there, and it was just the 2 of us for the majority of the time. And so, one night we would just eat something small, whatever. So we would kind of like save up our per diems to go and have like a really nice dinner out. And so we had lovely date nights all across the US, in San Diego, in Phoenix,
So
in
I'm
Nashville.
going to interrupt you for a
Florida.
second and explain to the audience. At this time, this was so clandestine, this nascent relationship, that not even Bethany's mom and I knew it was going on. And at the time, she was sending us like the usual kind of like, sort of like the messages with a photograph here and there. And, here I am in the Arizona desert. And we were sort of like, wait, that's not a selfie. Somebody else is taking that photograph, because it's like, clearly it's like 6-10 feet back, to get the view in, etc. That must be really nice of them. And like, we're both sort of like scratching our head.
Very nice coworkers.
That's interesting. And so we began to suspect that something was going on long before Bethany fessed up and sort of said that she was sort of actually, engaged in dating this guy. So that's my aside, just to let you know that parents' intuition was still there. Just I say,
you knew about him before we were engaged. Let's be.
Yes,
that made it sound like you found out like surprise.
It was anyway.
No, so that is my slightly shady work travel tip. Is find someone that you like.
It is,
and then just hang out. We also went on a club trip together.
Yes,
and people didn't know that we were dating. And so
well,
everyone would turn up and be like, "Oh, Bethany,
trip,
I didn't know that you got cleared to come to club this year." And I'd be like, "Oh yeah,
Club trips are another kind of interesting blessing and curse, because one, it's always nice to get recognition for the efforts that you put in, and I mean, don't get me wrong, we're all coin operated in sales, and so therefore we do it to earn the additional earnings that we earn. And that compensation episode we did with Chris Goff was really centered around that. I mean, what is it that you're in sales for? But to get the additional recognition that a lot of companies give of taking you on a club trip, and they all have different names and whatever. I mean, it was the Golden Circles, it's President's Club. They've all got labels of one kind or another. And they're usually to somewhere exotic. Sometimes they're to somewhere very interesting, but it's usually somewhere tropical on a beach, with a pool and a bar. And that's what most salespeople are like. Is it a bar? Is it a pool? Is there a beach? Is there good food? Awesome. I'm all set. The challenge is that if you are going on a club trip, they're normally only like 4 days, 3 days, 3 nights, 4 days, including travel days, etc. So you tend to get very compressed. So it's not like it's a vacation. The second thing that makes it not a vacation is you have to spend a fair amount of your time with all of these work colleagues and your partner, whoever your partner is, whether it's your spouse or someone else. And I'm lucky enough to have been on plenty of them, whereby my wife, Sarah, became a very, very good corporate spouse in terms of being able to read the room. And we're not big drinkers. So watching the general chaos ensue, as some people did overindulge, and sometimes it wasn't your coworker, it was whoever was partnering them. And I thought that became very interesting from a dynamics perspective. And I do think that there are some club trips I've been on whereby there were some HR write-ups when people got back to the office because of, interesting escapades. Let's leave it at that. But the other thing is you normally have to also go on a lot of activities with these people who are your work colleagues. So it's not like a vacation. And a lot of people who don't go on club trips, who maybe aren't in sales or whatever, they look at you and they go, off to Aruba, off to Cabo, very nice. They don't realize is it can actually be quite stressful and draining because you have to be on and perform. And you can embrace it and go, you know what, I'm just going to make the best of this, just like we do when we're traveling on business on the roads. But I would love to hear from some of our audience. Tell us about your sales club trips that were either absolutely amazing and different and out of the ordinary, or were absolute chaos, whereby it was just like, OMG, I'll be talking about that for the next 2 decades. I think that we would love to hear those stories if you would care to share them on here. But Bethany, you've been on a few club trips. What are your highs and lows out of that?
I think going in just with the right expectation. And, when my husband came with me on my last club trip that I earned, because he works in the same industry, he can kind of go into it and know, okay, I know what conversations to have. I know where to lead things. So it's nice from that perspective to have someone that is a little bit in the know. But I think the same rule applies to SKO, which applies to conferences, which applies to club trips, which applies to work travel.
Yeah.
Nothing good happens after midnight.
Yeah.
And there is no need for that extra shot.
Yeah.
There's no need. You don't need it. And you can still have a great time. You can still drink. But, I've seen even on work flights, and there's been some instances in the industry of people who have had a little bit to drink in the lounges and in the bars or on the planes, and they've made a fool of themselves, with varying repercussions. And so, I still think, work travel can be fun. And obviously, I dated on my work trips and I had good dinners and stuff. But you have to be a little bit respectful, I think, of you are traveling, you are representing your company, you're representing your industry. The thing that still confuses me is when you are flying out of a major city, especially a healthcare city like Nashville or Atlanta or Boston, and you are flying on one of the Sunday night or Monday morning flights to HIMSS or any of the big conferences, you still have salespeople who are in their vest with the backpack and you know exactly who they work for, and they are on the phone yelling at people or talking smack about people or talking about how this deal is going to push or we're going to get this deal. I'm like, You realize or they sit on the plane with their laptop open, and I can see that your company's stickers on the laptop. So I know exactly who you work for.
Yep.
And now I'm just looking at all of your QBR data and all of your pipeline. And because I'm nosy, I'm going to look. It's wild to me. So I think that you need to remember, if you are out there, and whether you're just traveling and you're trying to go home for Thanksgiving and you're trying to get some work done in the airport, you do have to kind of be a little bit self-aware.
Yeah.
Which salespeople aren't always the best at being self-aware. You need to be a little bit self-aware and think, what I'm saying or doing or portraying right now, is that what my company would want to be reflected?
Yep. Yep. You have to take some responsibility for the brand. Speaking of the brand, speaking of SKO, I've been busy on our behalf. I've created
Busy bee.
Yeah, I've created a little bit of merchandise and a store for our fans to be able to secure some primo swag and help support our channel. So we have upcoming in time for the holiday season, probably for Christmas, looking to probably launch it in time for the Black Friday sales. We're going to have some clothing merch with the Haverin About podcast brand. We are also going to promote Roll, i.e. Nothing Good Happens After Midnight. Remember, so now you can have it emblazoned on a t-shirt or a sweatshirt or a mug, and we're going to sort of make those available. But generally, just make some stuff available for you to be able to show your support to us. That's maybe a little more tangible than just a begging bowl of, hey, give us money. So, that way, if there is a love person in your life that you would like to send off to SKO with that warning emblazoned across their chest, then that could be a really good stocking stuffer for us to come up. So I'll make sure that we put the links for that in the video here so that people can get access to the merchandise as soon as it's available.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, Dad, it was lovely chatting with you from the fine Hilton. The Wi-Fi stood up, the iPad stood up,
Wonderful.
The selection box tower stayed standing.
And that's wonderful. And I hope you have safe travels home. I think you're coming home tomorrow, and that you'll be able to get back. And then it'll only be probably a week, and then you're on the road again with the family to make your trip up here to the Midwest. And we're really looking forward to seeing you. And we will be recording an episode in the same room. That'll be exciting.
In person.
Hopefully a short
So
one
exciting.
to celebrate the holidays and to say what we're thankful for, because we'll be together for that particular holiday. But we'll look to try and get that out. I wish we were organized enough to do a live stream. I don't think we're quite there yet. We'll save that for 2026 to be able to do that kind of event. But for now, Bethany in London, Stuart in Owatonna, Minnesota, we want to thank you very much for listening and watching. And until the next time, keep havering.
Bye.